This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. Grantland, Andy Greenwald on the line. How are you?
I'm well. How are you, boss?
Worst summer TV I can remember in a while.
Oh, are you suffering with it?
Trying to think back, actually, to when we've had a worse summer.
Well,
you'd have to actually go through the IMDb's and try to find a summer that did not have a signature show. It's got to have been at least a decade since this has happened.
Well, it's a little weird because I would say this has been the busiest summer in TV. I mean, I'm running ragged because there's something premiering every week, but you're right. Those things that are premiering tend to be like your favorite show, *Halt and Catch Fire*, or *The Leftovers*, or it's not a lot, but there are a couple gems out there.
All right, what are the gems?
All right, well, I got my column just went up today, Wednesday. The Nick on Cinemax. I feel like you should be in on the show early. It's premiering on Friday.
The Nick?
The Nick.
Is it about one of the Knicks, or what is it?
Oh, I get to pitch you on it? I think you're going to be in on this.
Pitch me on it. Pitch me on the Nick.
The Nick is a 10-episode Cinemax original medical drama. Every episode was directed by Steven Soderbergh, and it stars Clive.
Oh, I know about this.
Yeah,
okay. I'm in on this. I'm in on the Nick.
It's Clive Owen as the pioneering and completely cocaine-addicted surgeon in a 1900 hospital in Manhattan, and it is super gnarly with medical procedures and blood. But the show itself, it looks like nothing else on TV. I mean, I really recommend it.
Soderbergh, one of my favorite careers. I just like that he tries different stuff and has fun.
It's such a cool career, and he made this within months of saying he was done. He said he was retired, and then someone sent him the script, and he was like, well, I got to do it because if I don't, someone else will. And apparently he went to HBO with it, and HBO was like, and he said, I want to shoot it this fall. Clive Owen wants to do it. Here's how we're going to do it. And HBO said, we don't move that fast, but maybe Cinemax will. He did the whole thing. He shot all 10 hours in 73 days by working the camera himself. Oh,
so there you go. This is now on the website.
Yeah, it's on Greenwald.
The first cut is the deepest.
Yeah.
You can read Andy's. I actually like to watch the first show and then read the review. I go backwards.
Yeah, I try to keep the spoilers light, but I understand that.
All right, so the Nick first. What? Give me another one.
Have you watched You're the Worst on FX?
No, but they're all on my DVR, and I'm gonna maybe tonight. Might be tonight.
This is a good one. I mean, this is not one to watch when the kids are awake or in the room, because I can't believe they get away with some of the language and sex stuff that they do on the show, but it is so funny. It is crazy funny. It's like a bad attitude rom-com, and they were selling it as if it was like a love story between just two total assholes, but actually it's kind of secretly sweet. The guy who wrote it was working on Orange is the New Black.
Oh. And you really like the two leads, Chris Gere and Aya Cash?
Yeah, they have crazy chemistry, and they're just really funny. It's weird. The show is really extreme, but it's weird because the characters seem to be really broad, but they remind me more of people I actually know than more toned down sitcoms.
Oh. All right, so we have two. What else?
God, you want more than two? I like Masters of Sex. I don't know where you are with that.
Yeah.
Not you?
I'm not anywhere yet. It's one of those, if I just got to crank through all the episodes. But I have a few of those shows now, and I never seem to actually crank through the episodes.
Where are you with The Leftovers? We talked about it when I was out there, and I know that you weren't loving it.
I broke up with The Leftovers after episode 2.
He just walked away.
Yeah, I started watching the first 5 minutes, episode 3, with the weird reverend with the crazy face.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't enjoy this show. I'm not invested in a single character on it. It's the darkest, least funny, least light everything show I've ever watched in my life. And it's summer.
That's right.
And I'm happy during the summer. And I'm regrouping for the NBA season. And I'm spending time with my kids. And I don't want to go into this world.
Yeah, you made that.
I don't want to go into the post-apocalyptic world.
You don't want to curl up with your family after a long Sunday and watch a woman get stoned to death in excruciating detail.
Well, fortunately, I missed that one. But Emily Yoshida, who's probably the most even-keeled person at Grantland, was really upset about that.
She's not okay with it. And she's right. I mean, it was the show. That's never kind of okay to watch, but the show certainly hadn't earned it. You know, it went for a really cheap shock. And then, you know, I think people could relate to what that lady felt like because the show kind of hits you in the face with it. But
well, what was interesting was I thought the pilot was magnificent. I loved it. I loved the way it was filmed. I loved the way it was acted. I was excited. And then episode 2 was about as severe of a drop-off as I can remember from episode 1 to episode 2 of a TV series. And I don't know, like, I don't remember if I was saying this to you or Chris Ryan or somebody. You guys are all like, you blend together in my mind. But the thing this show is missing is like the Hurley character.
Yeah, you were saying that to me, and you were right.
Yes.
This is what I said in my review of it. Like, I get that this is a dark meditation on grief, and that's fine, and I feel like it's trying to do some emotional stuff that other TV shows don't, but you can't tell me that there is no one on planet Earth that didn't benefit from this insane, weird rapture. There's no one who got out of an abusive marriage, or someone who suddenly inherited millions of dollars when their parents vanished. There has to be someone who's enjoying this. That's
one thing, and then the other thing is, some people deal with grief differently than other people. Some people like try to find humor in it.
Yes.
Or, you know, they're cracking jokes, and that's just there's their defense mechanism for it. And everybody is just so grim in this. I don't know. It's just the thing is, I like Thoreau. I think he's good on this show. Like, that was the reason I was thinking of sticking with it. But other than that, I just don't want to spend my summer watching this show.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if they had cast anyone else in that lead? I mean, he's so likable that I think he's getting people through extra episodes than they otherwise would have been out.
Yeah, it's almost like in sports, if you let John Lester go because you couldn't afford John Lester and then replaced him with some left-hander who put up 87% of the same stats.
Yeah.
They're basically getting Brad Pitt from that role. They're getting 87% of what Brad Pitt would have given them in that role with Thoreau. Which is ironically what Jennifer Aniston's getting as well.
That's right.
She gets 87% of Brad Pitt with Justin Theroux. So everybody's getting 87% of Justin Theroux. That
actually, if you watch the show through that prism, it makes it a lot more entertaining. If you just think about it in terms of Jennifer Aniston's life. I thought you were really right also, though, that this idea that it's on in the wrong season. Because was the concern if HBO aired this in February that they would be responsible for just a wave of suicides? Was it just too dark to put on in winter?
Maybe, but it's a winter show. It's a January, February. I'm depressed anyway. It's 13 degrees outside, and Christmas just happened, and now here are the leftovers.
And they filmed it in the winter.
It could be worse. That could be these people.
Yeah, exactly. And they filmed it in winter, which, you know, as you know from a distance, was the worst winter ever. So there's just the snow piled up everywhere. It's reminding us of this awful season that we had. It's a strange one. It's a strange one. But yet the ratings aren't catastrophic. And, you know, some people seem really into it. I find things to like in every episode, but I find the show impossible to like as a whole.
So if you were me and you could catch up on any show right now, would you pick Fargo, The Americans, or Orange is the New Black?
Oh, man, you're right in my wheelhouse here. Well, The Americans is my favorite show. So I have to, anytime anyone gives me a microphone, I have to talk about it. So yeah. I really recommend that. But here's what I'm going to alter my pitch to you, because, you know, you're a busy guy and time is a premium. So I think that you should probably, and also because you want to enjoy yourself. And The Americans is really good, but it can be dark. I think you should do Fargo first, because Fargo was just really surprising. And it was a total pleasure to watch, even though there were there's some dark and violent parts in it too, but it was a lot of fun to watch, and it was really surprising, and it's only 10 hours of your time.
Would your last pick be this new Kelsey Grammer Martin Lawrence show?
That would be low. That would be low on the list. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that Mark Lasanti hasn't made me cover yet, but now that you brought it up, I bet I'm going to get an email saying it's time to check in on it.
The critics hated it. They were like angry at it.
But it's kind of this really smart thing, because first, FX is so smart because they, you know, everyone is, me included, is praising them because they have The Americans, they have Fargo, you know, and they're this up and coming creative network. But they're making a lot of money and spending a lot of money on things like the Charlie Sheen show. Like, that still exists on FX, but we've all agreed not to just pretend it doesn't.
But people are still watching it, though, right? There's this whole element of the country that watches it.
But to a degree that's profitable. I mean, they have this very strange system, you know, this thing called the 1090 deal for sitcoms.
Yeah.
And they did this on TBS too with the Tyler Perry shows. And basically they say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take something that's, probably pretty broad and could appeal to a lot of people, like an old-fashioned multi-camera sitcom, and we will make 10 of them. And if those 10 turn out okay, we will make 90 more. Because it's basically cost controlling, because for a certain amount of money up front, they now know they will have 100 episodes that they can just use whatever. That's the sort of the magic number for syndication. So they're investing in the fact that they're just going to make a lot of these and then have programming spackle for the next, 5 or 10 years.
Who, if you had to rank the networks right now, who's winning for smart, good TV? Who's the leader in the clubhouse today?
This is a fun one. HBO is still the king until they give up the throne. They partly they act like it. I mean, I wrote about this in the Emmy preview. It was such a baller move, but for them to put True Detective in as a drama series, because it was more. It's correctly would have been in as a miniseries, and it would have won all of the miniseries categories. They put it in drama series. It's probably going to lose to Breaking Bad, but they don't care about winning. They just care about acting like they deserve to win. So that's the attitude of the network. And, they have Game of Thrones, which is, the most popular drama. And they have Veep, which is the best comedy. And they just have all this deep bench of shows. And we're criticizing The Leftovers, but we're talking about it. That's still, when we think about the summer, that's still the headlining show, even if it's disappointing. So they're number one until somebody unseats them. But Charlie Sheen aside, I put FX in at number 2 with a bullet. They have so many good shows. We haven't even mentioned The Bridge, another favorite of mine that's on this summer.
Yeah.
And, and now they have The Strain on Sunday nights, which is ridiculous, but is a whole new lane for them. They've never been on Sunday nights. They've never gone for like pop horror, and the ratings for it are good. And it's the kind of place where people really want to work because they let people be creative and they stand back. So those two are sort of a class above, I think. And then underneath that, you have your Showtimes and your, in your AMC dropping, because I still don't quite know what they're doing.
Showtime 3rd, AMC 4th. What about Comedy Central?
Oh, okay. Well, see, it's hard to compare and contrast, but in terms of like who's killing it right now within their chosen field, Comedy Central's way up there right now. Comedy Central.
3rd?
Are you putting them 3rd? I wouldn't argue that. I wouldn't.
Shout out to Ken Alterman.
That's our guy.
We like Ken Alterman.
Ken Alterman, a guest on my podcast, a nice guy.
Yeah, good guy. Came to the 3rd Grantland party.
I didn't see him there. Was he just lurking in the back?
Yeah. Listen, there's so many celebrities. It was tough to tell.
It was also it was just dark.
When people like Johnny Bananas and people are there, it's tough for a Comedy Central executive to stand out.
To get the spotlight, yeah.
So you go HBO, FX, Comedy Central, Showtime, AMC, and then sadly, USA would be over Stars, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Is Stars last by any calculation?
I mean, I would put up and coming networks like Sundance ahead of Stars, just because.
Wow, come on, Stars.
I'm not a fan of their programming. I mean, I haven't seen yet. They have the show that people are talking about called Outlander, which is their big like sci-fi adaptation, and some people are positive on it. I got to check it out. But if you look at what Stars has been doing, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, they invested in shows like Magic City and then Spartacus, and are they going to be the TNA network? Oh no, then we're going to do partner with Michael Bay and make this bad pirate show, Black Sails, and then they partner with 50 Cent, and then it just seems like they're trying to win the war on Deadline.com, not actually with viewers.
Yeah, Chris Albrecht, the guy, he used to run HBO, had to leave because of a domestic violence incident.
Yes. And
got credited for a lot of their early success, I think in the 90
all of it, yeah.
6 to 2004 range.
The Sopranos, Sex and the City, Comic Relief, all the things that defined HBO were under his leadership.
But you know what? It's a business where it's a what have you done lately business, unfortunately, and he's been bad on Stars.
It's also kind of it's the kind of thing where, I mean, I've never dealt with him. I don't know anything about him personally, but it's the kind of thing where he had an enormous amount of clout and success and a lot of established relationships, and then he went to a network that needs someone younger and hungrier to sort of stand out. And I think that he's been doing business the way HBO used to do business, which is we get to pick the cream from the top, but he's not getting the cream.
No. And he's taking these big swings, but they're not with the best people, which is a problem.
Yeah, and I think other networks have been a little bit more nimble and a little bit smarter about empowering people who are either have really crazy out there ideas and that gets them attention, or they work with people who just know how to make TV, and that kind of helps.
Would you put Cinemax above USA?
I am high on Cinemax right now. Not for the reasons I was high.
Rafe Bartholomew's favorite network.
Yeah, well, it was my favorite network too when I was in high school, but now it's my favorite for different reasons. It's pretty cool what they're doing. A show I love. I don't know if you ever checked out. I talked about it last time I was on with you, but Banshee is a really fun, smart, pulpy show, and the third season is starting in January. And then that was their brand, which was a smart brand for them, because they were basically being like, if HBO does literary prestige stuff, like we're going to take the Tom Perrotta novel The Leftovers and turn it into a TV show. Cinemax was like, okay, you take that part of the bookstore, we'll go to the dime store rack with all the really like lurid, lascivious, murder by night books, and we'll just make those into series. And then they get the Soderbergh project that falls into their lap. So that sort of maybe screws up their identity and development, but it's a great look for them. Like no one's ever talked about Cinemax like they're talking about Cinemax this week.
Oh, we forgot about Netflix.
Oh, that's the other thing. So then if you start folding in these other, if you're considering Netflix a network, which they do, and Amazon a network, then I'm more high on their futures at the moment than I am on AMC.
So I agree with you. I'd have Netflix either fourth or fifth, depending on how you feel about Showtime. They're behind Showtime at this point, but they might be able to jump them.
But what's the hierarchy there? Because I feel like any network in the top five, or maybe is it the top five or the top three, is reserved for networks where no matter what they put on, you will check it out just because you trust them at this point. And I feel like HBO stays like that. Everyone pays attention when HBO debuts a show.
And I think FX has gotten to that point now.
I agree. FX deserves a shot even when their shows missed, like Tyrant missed. But AMC was there because they were coming off like the most unprecedented streak ever with their first three shows with Mad Men and Breaking Bad and then The Walking Dead took off. But since then, they've fallen out. I mean, they're no longer in that conversation. But Netflix might be getting there if they have a big show and they have something coming up. I think in the next, not this year, maybe early next year, from the guys who made Damages, and it stars Kyle Chandler. If they have projects like that, people will pay attention.
They made the biggest mistake with the putting out all the shows at once. If nobody's seen season 1 of House of Cards yet. Man, can I spoil that yet or no? What's the ruling?
I think you can spoil the first season of House of Cards as long as we say how long it's going to be. People have to cover their ears.
Well, I won't spoil it, but somebody gets killed near the end of season 1.
The best character.
It was a big mistake. The best character. It was a big mistake, and I feel like if they had been trotting these episodes out while they were still filming the back end, maybe it would have been a Brody situation where they changed their decision and just kept the guy around, but I thought that killed the show. It was never the same. And then the season 2, it was really the worst of Kevin Spacey.
Oh, so bad.
Him overacting. I mean, if it wasn't for Joe Mooney on Scandal, he'd be the biggest overactor on TV. But thank God for Joe Mooney. But unwatchable. I'm out on House of Cards. I lasted like an episode and a half.
Yeah, I
couldn't
thought
take it anymore.
I mean, it's not just that they killed the best character in the first season; they killed the only human being on the show. And so the second season was basically like watching someone's like fan fiction about what would happen if Lex Luthor beat Superman. It was just watching a cartoon villain just crush a city, and that's not really that entertaining. It was a really problematic season. But then maybe actually in this case, I think they dodged a lot of bullets because, they got all their press before the season premiered, and then no one talks about it really. So I feel like had it been going week to week, there would have been this 12-week momentum of, oh man, the show is not good anymore. Oh, it's getting worse. But they sort of dodged that, so it worked out for them.
That's true. It was all at once. It was like just pulling off a Band-Aid. It hurt quickly, and then it was done.
That's right. It's weird, though. I mean, they're committed to doing this, and it can help them and it can hurt them. And like Orange is the New Black, the first season, it got dumped overnight, but people weren't ready for it or expecting it. And so that actually got the nice sustained bounce as people discovered it and talked about it. Second season, everyone was ready for it. It got a ton of press. And then who knows when people finished it. I haven't finished it yet, and I feel like that's another one of the situations where the thing that helped them the first season hurt them in the second.
We went too long without talking about Nathan For You, my favorite show of the summer and of the year.
This is your favorite show. You're preaching this from the rooftops, and I am not. I'm behind. I'm behind on it. But isn't this show enough to save the summer for you?
It's been great. It's been magnificent. The dumb Starbucks episode was one of the all-time great comedy half hours of this century. Just an amazing piece of work. I just loved it. I thought it was so smart and just so out there and so cool. I really liked it. And then this week, God, what was it last night? I was dying. He did it. Oh, he did this thing. It was this thing to get people to lose weight. And they had to do something humiliating that wasn't going to be revealed if they lost the weight. But if they didn't lose the weight, then it was going to be revealed.
Right.
So it was kind of like you're dangling a carrot, and it's like an embarrassing carrot.
The worst.
And these people all
carrot.
lost the weight except one person. I don't want to spoil it, but that show makes me laugh so hard. Like it's very hard to get me to laugh when I'm watching TV, and that one he just slays me. I can't take it. I love Nathan Fielder.
I feel like it's worth talking about, because I know you've been paying attention to this, how completely 180 Comedy Central is from where it was just a few years ago. Because what was, like, as recently as, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, The Daily Show and Colbert were as good as they always are, and people talked about them, and they got good ratings. But other than that, the network was it just wasn't funny. Like, there weren't good comedies on it, and they didn't seem to know how to make them or what their brand was, since they can't develop traditional sitcoms. And they kept throwing shows at just anybody. And then they figured it out all of a sudden and really quickly.
It was slowly turning into a network that you just had to go there for an hour and that's it. And now they've figured out. The Midnight Show with Hardwick is a successful show for them.
Big successful show.
Yeah. And, it's the great what if, but I do feel like they screwed up the John Oliver thing. Put it this way, if somebody was doing something, taking over, like, let's say Zach had to disappear for 4 months and we needed a new NBA guy to take over his column, I would make sure that person had a Grantland contract beyond that column, and that if he took off, it's a stupid analogy because it's apples and oranges, but you can't give somebody that kind of window and platform and then not also own the ability to reap the benefits from it. And once it became clear that John Oliver was a big star, they didn't really have any leverage with it.
Well, they didn't have they didn't have a slot for him. I think that was the other thing. I'm sure they went to him and they were like, "You're amazing. Let's give you a new contract and maybe something that extends, our relationship."
But they did that after. But my thing is, hey, John, we're going to give you stewardship for 4 months, but if we do this, you have to sign a 2-year holding deal with us.
I got this vibe that people were really taken aback by how good he was. I think they knew he could do it.
How are you not taken aback? Like, this is a guy that works for you. You should never be surprised by somebody that works for you. At least make sure, at least give yourself protection on the back end with it. I think that was it's a huge TV what if, because he's gone HBO, and this is my other favorite show this summer that I wanted to mention. He's brilliant on that show.
Yeah,
and what he's been able to do, he's been able to take all the stuff Stewart does day to day and do a greatest hits version of it that he pours all his best material into a half hour. The 10-minute monologue / video essay, whatever you want to call it, is one of the single best things on television. And that shows a real asset. And I think Comedy Central screwed up.
It's crazy that it's not just that. It's not crazy how good that show is and how fast it got good, but that he's winning the internet basically every week with a show that he only does once a week. Like, and that was a spot that, like that Jon Stewart video or Colbert video would kind of go viral every now and again. Monday morning, people are posting whatever Oliver did the night before. And it's a huge success for HBO. I mean, the only counter I have is that whatever Comedy Central offered him or whenever they offered it, I think he would go to HBO no matter what. I think he was gone because HBO has more money.
But that's my whole point,
flashier
though.
Thing.
My whole point was, if you're giving him that platform, you take care of the best case scenario outcome for that platform before it even happens. So be like, hey, you're going to do this, and we're going to sign you to a 2-year holding deal for X. So then if it takes off for whatever reason, you're protected.
Yeah.
All they did was, I guess a better analogy would be sports. It's like Andrew Luck's got hurt. Hey, we're going to put this other guy in, but his contract expires at the end of the year.
He's a free agent, yeah.
Yeah, but you could have taken care of it, and you just decide, we'll see how he does, and then all of a sudden you built him up and he's gone.
The only other thing
I didn't like that.
The only other thing I would say is that, there is the big what if, because if Colbert, that Colbert leaves and Oliver's under contract and not at HBO, then he's obviously the guy who gets that slot. But does he make sense there following The Daily Show? Because as you said, correctly, he's basically doing a weekly, more in-depth version of The Daily Show. Like, it's not, I don't know if it would be enough of a difference back to back. You know, I feel like Oliver should take over The Daily Show if Stewart ever leaves, but that doesn't seem like it's happening. So I don't know if it's the
a
best
solid
fit.
point, but you're still
losing.
They knew Colbert was leaving at some point. They
Yeah.
knew he wasn't going to do a character for 20 years.
No,
they knew
and he made that
character
clear.
was running its course. He made it clear. They knew he was they knew that he was the number one CBS choice for Letterman.
He wanted the Letterman job, and people who knew him and were in the know knew that. Like, that was not a secret, which is strange the way it was greeted. It seemed to be greeted by Comedy Central like the biggest shock in the world, even though it can't have been. I mean,
9 years is a long time to do a character.
I did that Ken Alterman interview that I think like 12 hours before it was announced, and I asked him about it, you know, and he's either the greatest actor of all time, or he really didn't know 100% it was happening. Because he played it off saying, you know, Steven's a great talent and blah, 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 but he I don't know. I don't know if it's a poker face or what.
Did you have an opinion on the new CBS 1230 guy that's rumored to get the job, James Corden?
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought about that. This guy is really funny. He did a show that was on Hulu, which is probably near the bottom of our network rankings at the moment, but a British show called The Wrong Mans. And if people haven't checked it out, it's free on Hulu Plus, and it's really funny. It's like a parody of a spy story about these two dopes who get caught up in global espionage, and he's really good in it. And he's sort of having a moment because he's one of the stars of Into the Woods, you know, the movie musical that's coming out, and like you would think that that's a launching pad towards movie stardom, and then all of a sudden CBS is like, no, we like having a charming British guy at 12:30. We're just going to hire him. It's a little bizarre. I mean, CBS loves comfort. They love to keep continuity. And I guess he's the in a weird way, he's a CBS version of Jimmy Fallon in that he's a little bit younger, he's popular on Twitter, he sings and dances. But I still don't get it. I mean, you have a lot of opinions about late night. What do you think about this?
Well, you know I don't like British people.
It took 2 years to get you into Game of Thrones for that reason.
Yeah. Although what's funny is I love London. I do like British people, I'm kidding, but just in terms of what I wanted from that 12:30 slot, I really wanted them to pick a woman for that spot. Like, how do we not have a woman on an 11:30 or 12:30 show? It's amazing. There's 6 shows at all times. Well, I guess ABC only has 5.
Yep.
All right, I mean, ABC doesn't have the 12:30, so it's really only 5. But I just really 2014 never had a female on one of the 3 networks, 11:30 or 12:30. I just think it's perplexing.
And not just the networks. Let's throw in Conan on TBS, throw in the Daily Show and Colbert hour, or soon to be the Larry Wilmore half hour. I mean, it's no women. It's really weird. And
it's really Chelsea Handler, and that's it. And that was a lark on E, who was just throwing shit against a wall and hoping something stuck.
Although, you know, now she's going to Netflix, which is even weirder.
Oh, I know. I'm well aware.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a whole other argument. I feel like they're catching her at the wrong point of her career, personally.
I agree with that.
I thought she mailed in that show because my wife watches that show. I thought she was mailing in that show the last 18 months.
I also think Netflix, you know, they make a big show about how they don't release. They make a big show of privacy, which seems like that's that's some sort of oxymoron, but I mean it. Like they don't release any information about any of their viewership. But the truth is, they have to have some sense of their demographics. And I don't know what their demographics are, if they're throwing money at Arrested Development, if they're doing Orange is the New Black, if they're giving The Killing a 3rd chance at life, a 4th chance that it doesn't deserve, and now Chelsea Handler. It seems way all over the place. But the one thing that's been a little hard to accept also, not just that there's no women in the late night show space, but people keep throwing out their dream hosts of these shows, but they throw out people who would never in a million years take these jobs. Like the people are like, oh, well, Tina Fey should do
Chris
it.
Rock.
Or Chris Rock.
Chris Rock, Tina Fey.
She doesn't want to do it. Or Amy Schumer. It's like, why would she do it? She has a TV show with her name in it, and she's making a movie with Judd Apatow. These jobs are hard work, you know? I think you have to have someone who really, really wants that, and I don't know who that woman is, but there has to be at least a dozen, you know, who deserve an audition.
Well, the history of these late night shows is that probably 8 or 9 out of 10 times when they pick somebody, the reaction is, what? Who?
Yeah, totally.
That's what always happens. Kimmel, Conan, Colbert, like on down the line. It was always somebody that you were a little surprised by. And when people throw out these names, oh, it should be that person, Really, it should have been like when Comedy Central gave Amy Schumer a show and people just knew her because she did a couple roasts,
Yeah.
And that's who they should be looking at. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for who that person should be. But I was bummed because I really thought that was a good opportunity for CBS to make some history in some way.
Also, isn't there a version of this where it's just like, it's the 12:30 show on a network. People aren't watching this show. The margin for success is so small. It almost doesn't matter what you put on. So why don't you take advantage of that? There's so few things on network TV that are, I don't want to call them throwaways, but let's say pressure free. Right? Like real estate is so valuable on the networks and their margins are shrinking. But here's a spot where, it's going to get what it's going to get. And it's 12:30 and the attention is all going to be on Colbert. So you can actually try something. And if it doesn't work, then no one's going to kill you for trying. But CBS is not that network.
You're running on fumes of the previous show at 12:35. And it's really hard to actually build on those fumes and create something beyond what your rating should have been, Seth's ratings are huge, and nobody knows whether it's because that show built an audience outside of what it would have been, or whether they're just running on fumes from Fallon's huge audience, and only the focus groups and all that stuff can tell.
And with CBS, it didn't make any real sense for Kilborn to be hosting that show after Letterman, because he was his act is a little bit of a, he's an inheritor of Letterman. I don't think he's necessarily deserving one, but that's who his hero was. And it actually made more sense when weird old Tom Snyder was sitting there just, talking in a dark room, because at least it was a change. It was just a vibe change, and it gave you reason to do something different. And Ferguson has developed into that too.
Well, I'm not saying these would have been this would have been the right pick, but in my head, I was hoping they would do, first of all, I was hoping Key and Peele would get 11:30 on Comedy Central.
Oh, it would have been amazing.
And then I was thinking, that would have been a really interesting choice for CBS for 12:30 too. I just wish they had broken new ground. I feel like I know barely anything about James Corden, but I really doubt that we'll be looking back at the James Corden era 3 years from now and be like, wow, that guy, holy mackerel, did he turn late night on its heels. Do you see any chance of that happening?
No, but especially because he's more like, and this, again, I could be wrong about this, but judging by his career up to this point, he's more of a Greg Kinnear type, in that he's a charming guy who's probably great on talk shows and would be a fine host, in as much as he's probably good at hosting a dinner party, but he has different goals in his career. He's starring in movies. He's making TV shows. I can't imagine he just wants to sit in a studio for the rest of his life. He's not that old. So it's a weird placeholder.
Let's throw all realism out the window, and anyone on the board could have gotten that 12:30 job. Who would you have picked?
I pitched this in the thing last year, I think, or maybe it was the year before, when all of his jobs suddenly started shifting for the first time, when I think the Leno retirement that stuck was announced. I feel like there's a really good and interesting and weird collective of comedian types out there. And they're the type of, it's like the posse that does Children's Hospital. So there's Paul Scheer and Lake Bell is part of that, and Ken Marino and all these just comedy dudes and women. Malin Ackerman was part of it, that just make stuff, and they make a lot of weird stuff for Adult Swim, and they make podcasts. And I kind of was hoping that they would take that hour that they have and just give it over to one of these comedy collectives just to see what they do with it. Because these people can book their own guests. They're friends with everybody. They can get John Hamm will come to the opening of anything. He'll just show up if these guys call him. So why couldn't they have a weird show every night where it's part variety show, part comedy show, part, basically like film podcast, and just see what happens. It doesn't need to be, we don't need another couch. We don't need another desk.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea, because you're tapping into a whole culture / generation. And you think, like, when Letterman got the job in the early 80s, he brought with him this whole group of stand-up comedians, all these young and hungry guys that weren't on Carson, really. And he tapped in this whole generation of people. Same thing for Conan in the early 90s. Jimmy, when he started in 02, 03, had that whole world, like Sarah Silverman, that generation of comics. They all started coming on his show. And now for this generation, which, as you said, it's a little more spread out and has like the John Hamm type people walking in. There is a whole LA comedy culture out here that IFC has gone after. But it would have been fascinating if CBS had tried to dip into it with 12:30.
Yeah, IFC is sort of trying to own that alternative comedy thing as their brand, which is smart for them, but it's a very limited, it's kind of a limited thing to make a whole network out of it. But for a 12:30 show, because it's not only do you have something different, and you have people that can attract a demographic that is attractive to advertisers. But you also have the added value of being in LA, and the axis has totally shifted now in terms of the shows, because you have Colbert in New York, and you have Fallon in New York, and you have Seth in New York, and I guess Corden will probably be in LA, but I still think you want something out there that is going to take advantage of being out there, other than the fact that movie stars promote movies and they go to Burbank to do it.
Yeah, the show that everybody's run from doing for whatever reason, like Letterman. He would have Leno on like every 3 or 4 weeks.
Yes.
Leno was just a regular. It was almost like how I do the podcast, where it's like, I'm doing a podcast. Hey, guess who's going to be on again? Zach Lowe. He was on 3 weeks ago. He's on again. But they don't think that way with late night shows anymore. And I thought the more, you mentioned that idea, it got my brain kind of bubbling a little. It would be interesting if somebody was just like, you know what? I'm probably going to have the same like 25 to 30 guests on all the time. And I'm just dipping into that world, and occasionally we'll have people from the outside world, but really this is my bubble and all the people in my world, and that's what this show is.
If the TV landscape if the TV landscape of today existed 10 years ago in 2004, IFC would have made this show. But if you look at a place like Largo in LA, where John Bryan, the musician, would have his nights, and Amy Mann and Michael Penn and Kanye would sometimes show up because when he recorded with John Bryan, and then you have like Paul F. Tompkins, and you have Zach Galifianakis, and all these people who would become the next generation of comedians hanging out. There's your show. You have a collective that actually likes each other, likes collaborating, and then you just see what happens when you put different weird people into the mix. I think that would be an exciting thing to watch. Well, and also,
some of those people now are in their late 30s, early 40s. There's this whole other generation of people in their mid-late 20s who kind of grew up loving that generation of the Zach Galifianakis, Sarah generation, and that generation is starting to come up. Who's going to tap into those people?
Yeah, I mean,
those are your next comedy warriors, and I don't feel like James Corden is going to be tapping into them.
No, and I don't think CBS is necessarily even interested or aware in that demographic. That's not their brand, but you where you see those people coalescing is in things like Comedy Bang Bang, or the podcast and then the show, or on IFC, or like Pete Holmes, who briefly had a show on TBS that was actually kind of an interesting show, and he's a really funny guy. It probably wasn't the best fit, funny, but he's a very funny, very nice guy, and was able to completely just tap into that world. Now, anyone listening to this who hearing me say that is just going to call up the ratings for that, which were awful enough to get canceled on TBS. But it doesn't make it wasn't worthwhile. He was the wrong guy to host it. He should have been a big part of this show. I'm not positive he was the right guy to host it. It almost... Not even positive you need like a traditional, this guy's hilarious host. Like it could have been Chris Hardwick. And he could have just corralled all these different people. Anyway, we're out of time. I got to go. Andy Greenwald, always a pleasure. Check out his piece today about Nick premiering on Cinemax. And he thinks you should watch Nick. The Nick.
And he thinks.
Yeah. You're the worst.
What was the other one? You're the worst. I recommend Nathan For You. I love Nathan For You. What was the other one I recommended? There's one other one.
You recommended That Makes You Laugh, and you recommended, oh God. Do you want me to recap the podcast for the site? I could do that.
No, I don't remember. All right. And I recommend the other one I recommended.
That was a good recommendation.
Thank you. The BS Report. We'll be back later in the week. Thank you, Danny Greenwald. Talk to you soon.
So I get to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.